This is the recording for Math Secondary 1, Graphing with y equals mx plus b. This is a review from your junior high times, and so technically, of course, you should already know this, but we're just reviewing. If you remember, y equals mx plus b is the pattern for graphing linear equations, which means we will always make a line. So linear has the word line in it, and yours will always look like a line. So we start from using the letter B, which represents the y-intercept. So there's the y axis, and your y-intercept is at what point on this line the number is. So if it's a 1, you would put a dot on that line at 1. If it's a -3, you would put a dot on that line at -3. The next letter that we look at is the M, which would stand for your slope. And the slope is how steep the line is. And the slope is usually written as a fraction, and it will tell you for the next dot how far up and over from the dot you already made at B you need to go. So let's look at an example there. Our first example being y equals 2x plus 1. So we would look right there at the y-intercept, remembering the y-axis is the vertical one, and you put a dot at 1. Oops, scoot over a little bit, there we go, sort of a dot. And that's your first dot. Your second dot will be the slope, and the slope is 2. Remember, we said it's easier written as a fraction. So for this one, you would go up 2 over 1 and put a dot there. Then you have 2 dots, and you can connect them with a straight line. And that's how you would graph using that one. Our next example has a couple different things in it. The first thing is your y-intercept is negative. Therefore, you would go down to -4 on the y-axis and put a dot. Your second dot, you would look right there at the slope, which is 3 over 4. And the first one tells you how far to go up. The second one, how far to go over. Therefore, you would go up 3 over 4. Put your next dot and draw your line. Okay. The next one, and we're trying to show you lots of different things you might encounter in your assignment. Look right there at the y-intercept. Again, it's at 4. So I'm going to put my dot at 4. But when I go to look for the number that is the slope, there's just an x. But if you remember, it means there's one x available. So your slope is going to be 1. Or 1 over 1, because we're going to put it in fraction form. So that means you're going to go up 1 over 1 and put a dot, and you can keep going if you'd like. Some people like 2 dots, some people like 3, and if you make a straight line it looks a lot better. But that's what your line is, and the line's name is y equals x plus 4. This next one has a positive number for the y-intercept, so we'll put a dot there at 3. But if you look at the slope, it's got something rather interesting, and that's a negative sign. So you know that with a negative slope, the line is not going to be going uphill, it's going to be going downhill. So what you have to decide is the negative sign goes with one or the other, but not both. So you had to decide. So if you choose this first one, negative 1 over 4 would mean you would go down 1 and over 4 and put a dot. Or if you choose the other one, you would go up 1 and to the left 4 and put a dot. Now if you notice, as you do those, they all fall on the same line, so it doesn't really matter where you put the negative, it will just fall in that same spot. On this one, when you go to look for the y-intercept, there isn't one. So you would know that it would be 2x and then plus 0. So you would put your dot right at 0 on the y-intercept. Again, the slope is negative. So we make it a fraction, negative 2 over 1, or you could make it 2 over negative 1. So if we graph the negative 2 over 1, we would go down 2 over 1, or we could go up 2 to the left 1, and it leaves us with the same line. This one is rather unique. There is no slope showing, and so a lot of times you just memorize which way it goes, but basically the y-intercept is 5, and no matter what your x is, the y will always be 5. So you just mark all along the way, and you find that you have a flat line right at 5. It also could be written as 0x plus 5, which means you start on 5 and you go up 0, and so it doesn't matter which way you do it. So remembering a lot of times that a y equals number or line would be horizontal, and that would lead us to the next one, which is an x equals number. So if you have x equals, it means you don't have a y. So at negative 2, you would put a dot at the negative 2 on the x-axis because there are no y's. And so everything that you would graph with that x would be on that line. Therefore, x equals negative 2 or x equals anything would be a vertical line. And there is no slope. The slope on that is undefined. So let's save this slideshow and you'll be great.